The little kids waved at me from the window of the mansion. They were inside. They were inside the mansion eating as much as they wanted. We were being a nuisance to the owner. I ran in to apologize. I apologized with all my might. "Please," I begged, "forgive the little ones, I'll pay you back for what they ate." I offered all the money I had. I bowed my head again and again. "I'm sorry, forgive us." Then, they embraced me. The room was filled with beautiful teenage girls with pitch black hair and pitch black eyes. They were so soft and smelled divine. They felt almost motherly. "It's okay now. Everyone's allowed to eat here. We brought all this food for you to eat. Go ahead and have your fill." A feast was laid out on the table, all sorts of delicious-looking foods that I'd never seen in my life. All of the kids were laughing and smiling as they ate up, shouting at me to join them. Behind them, a black-haired, black-eyed boy was preparing the food. He was cooking and setting up the dishes at an incredible pace. "Chow down, eat up, gotta grow up big. To grow up big, you gotta eat, and if you don't eat, well, sad stuff might totally happen. Although, sad stuff is already happening, so just eat, right? No, I'm not saying that you're small, I'm just thinking my unlimited thoughts into existence, but you're right, it probably doesn't need to be said. Ahem ahem, hem, do I sense a morning star in here? Miss Armor Rep lent that to you, did she? Yeah, I figured that was the morning star that I'm oh so familiar with. Speaking of which, why is the morning star the only darn thing you attack me with? It was so fun. Everyone was laughing and smiling. Even me. I ate so much. I told everyone that it was the first time in my life that I had eaten so much food, and such delicious food. Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. The true terror is the one more set that happens after you eat the delicious delight known as manju, but plenty of those girls have progressed beyond the need for seconds. Don't share the morning star around like that. And don't have it battle ready, either. If I end up powering it up with mithril, I'll be screwed. I mean, if Miss Armor Rep showed up in a nurse outfit saying I'll nurse you right up with some mithril, baby, my misfit teenage boy heart might explode. I mean, a girl in a nurse outfit offering to nurse me up, wag, wa-a-agmph. They were so lively. It was so much fun, and the food was so good, they were all so kind. I was so happy to be hugged like that. They held my hand and patted my head. "Just try your best," they said. "After all that work, no reward? Unbelievable. And, if they don't give you cash, just rip 'em off, your vibe?" They promised me that we would get what we deserved for our work, all of us, forever and ever from this day forward. The boy said that he had decided as much, so he would rip the nobles off, and he patted my head. I mean, you can solve most societal problems with a little whacking and ripping off. Pretty sure some famous old dude said so. Well, nobody knows if he said it or not, but I guess that means it's not a famous saying, so who cares? You know? I'd get a reward for working, and would continue to be rewarded every day for the rest of my life. That's what they said. And they patted my head. It felt so nice. I was so glad to have never given up. Now I knew how it felt to be happy. Today was the most fun I'd ever had. I decided to keep working hard, to never give up. If I keep going, then more happy days like today will come again. All the kids laughed until they cried and laughed again. So overcome with happiness, so utterly delighted that the tears flowed. I couldn't believe it. Normally, we cried because we were hungry, or cold, or lonely, or hurt, or felt sad, or suffered. This time, it was because we were so happy. Changing time. Here, take some of my clothes. Yeah, mine too. They showed us to our rooms in the giant mansion. They told us this wasn't a mansion, it was the orphanage, and it was our home now. There was even a giant bath. I had seen a bath once before, but this was amazing. Amazing. I get to take a bath. The girls helped wash me. They all sparkled. I'm getting so pretty, just like a noble. All right, time to wash your heads next, One of the girls called. "Line up now." Okay. No one could stop crying. We could hardly believe it. Having our bellies full of delicious food, getting to take a bath. To feel so happy all at once. What would we do tomorrow? Don't worry about a thing. It's okay now, it's okay now. Yeah, the guy in the black cloak said so. I want him to keep smiling. I want everyone to keep smiling. And that's why it's going to be okay now, the black-haired girl said. He'll make sure everyone keeps smiling. Yeah, you're going to be happy now, the other girls chimed in. Because he makes sure of it. Everyone burst into tears again, the big kids and small kids alike. We were all so happy already. They said that every day would be like this from now on. How could it possibly keep going? We were already so happy. So happy that nobody could forget this day for the rest of our lives. They hung up a sign. I took it over. The boy suddenly shouted, and all the girls got mad at him. Apparently the orphanage was the souvenir shop orphanage branch, you know. You feel? Now. Starting tomorrow, we would get to wear pretty clothes and help in the shop in exchange for delicious meals. They had beautiful clothes prepared for all of us in every size. Uniforms. Now the boy was shouting labor force, acquired. In a loud voice, and the girls got mad at him again. They were giving out lots of food outside of the orphanage too, and making the houses beautiful. All of the townspeople were crying now, too. The small kids, the big kids, and the grown-ups too, all of them had started to cry. Nobody would be cold anymore. They gave out warm, fluffy futons. The wind would no longer blow through the walls. Our stomachs were so full that they hurt. But no one was crying at bedtime. All the kids cried all day long, but when it came time to sleep, nobody cried anymore. The little kids slept with smiles on their faces. Today, for the first time. I never knew how nice it was to be so full and warm. Day 66. Evening. Despite long years of service and successive battle after battle, they were too scared to say anything. Souvenir shop. Capital Front Branch. Haruka-kun made the decision to move even though we literally just set up shop outside the capital. Why did he make new buildings every day? And why was Angelica-san wearing a bus guide outfit? Don't tell me she's taking us on a Kyoto bus tour. Without the bus. He was talking nonsense as always. And as always, everyone ignored him. Since ancient times, it's been possible to burst through enemy blockades. You just need to find the weak point, burst through, and then bust up the defenseless enemy. So we're moving. Branch promotion time. I was pretty sure that enemy blockades had nothing to do with moving. Moving inside enemy territory wouldn't protect us at all. And why was he conflating moving with battle tactics to begin with? I should ask for an explanation. Actually, you know what? No. I was good. So, we held a closing sale. Now that we've opened up the capital branch, we can close the capital front branch. Enjoy bargains today and today alone in a blowout sale. A 1-hour limited sale with jaw-dropping unbeatable bargains. That's right, everything is 10% off. Well, I raised all the prices on the down low, so it's 10% off the raised prices, but 10% off is 10% off. I'll be making hella stacks tonight. Just a hunch, you know. The whole world trembled at his cry. Gra-ah. The fantasy world maiden wars had begun. That's right, a bargain sale. Guests starring all of the medieval women in the capital, waited here by the sale. The sweet words of cheap and bargain and limited, who could resist their venomous charm? Men and women, young and old, stormed the souvenir shop. This wasn't a maiden war, this was all-out regular war. It hadn't reached the level of a bargain sale yet. There was still breathing room, after all. For now, word of mouth was on our side. Word would spread of the mind-blowing deals. More are coming. And come, they did. The champions. The demise that reaped the end of all maiden wars. The grizzled, veteran warriors themselves, the middle-aged ladies. Known by the words whispered only in fear and terror by the men of this world, the housewives. The housewives sprung into the battlefield. They blasted the fledgling and furious maiden front with a brutal charge, splitting the battlefield with their rampaging attacks, scattering us in their merciless plunder of the splendid sails. The housewives unleashed their charge and left chaos in their wake. This was a rampage. This was hell. Even the former dungeon emperor was trembling. She had tears of terror in her eyes. Yes, the housewives were so scary that they made a dungeon emperor tremble with fear. We maidens didn't stand a chance. And then, everything, sold out. Good work. We're cleared out now, so, moving time? And what should I do with the Capital Front branch anyway? I guess I can just give it to Mr. Meridad. He just got here and all. A battalion of horseback knights were on their way. One knight rushed ahead of the pack, Lord Omoy. And another knight was desperately racing to catch up, probably his advisor. He looked distressed, as usual. Haruka Khan had even made him special equipment with superspeed, but he still couldn't keep up with Lord Omoy. Although, since Lord Omoy also had superspeed equipment made by Haruka Khan, the fact that the advisor couldn't keep up was actually Haruka Khan's fault. When you really think about it, most things are Haruka Khan's fault anyway. Sorry for being late, Lord Omoy said. Retrieving and reorganizing the Imperial Guard is the next step, but that could be difficult. Why did you build a fortress in the middle of the capital? Is the castle not safe enough? Don't tell me you destroyed it. Hey! This is, like, perfect, Haruka Khan said. This palace just conveniently opened up and I was looking for some way to use it, so feel free to use it as your base. I mean, I built it and all, so destroying it makes it feel like I'm not taking advantage of you. I mean it, you know. The 2nd Division old dude gave me a business permit, so we're moving. More importantly, I've nabbed some free crying labor so I can flex my millionaire might as a headmaster too, so look, you can have it. I don't need it. The souvenir shop Capital Front branch would become Omoy's army base. Lord Omoy had no idea what Haruka-san was talking about, but he seemed to understand that he would get a fortress out of it. It was just as well. Whenever Lord Omoy tried to understand Haruka-kun, he became incomprehensible himself. Our speech habits were all pretty ruined. Haruka-kun's speech style was just infectious like that. Lord Omoy would be next, you know? Look, I don't understand, but sure. I would like to request some interpretation if possible. Bit by bit, the Imperial Guard and Frontier Army assembled, and Haruka-kun expanded the building to accommodate them. But Book Club President was standing on top of the building roof. That meant that from afar, nobody could see the army that was assembling. That's right, the massive army standing right outside the city gates couldn't be seen from the capital. This was the power of the non-existence ring, forced hiding. Identification isolation. Perception estrangement. This was the holy magic item that Haruka-kun had used to hide the army and the attack on the first prince, magnified by the permeation effect of the ripple necklace and its anti-resist effects, nullifying any skills by the enemy that would counter it. You could call Book Club President's special items Haruka's trump cards. All right, we're all done here, so let's move, I sighed. Let's go. The orphans are waiting for us, you know. The kids loved Haruka-kun, as usual. I was worried about his negative influence on them. Kids inevitably imitated him, which risked an influx of some pretty terrifying Haruka-kun copies. For whatever reason, kids loved him, and that was that. We need to teach them that they can't copy him. A city overrun with mini Haruka-kuns would be unspeakably dangerous. Compared to that, the battlefield and dungeons were nothing. Well, no matter how much they want to, I suppose copying him is technically impossible, right? That's our only hope. Yup, no one could imitate him, fortunately. No reason to be worried. And if they could, then we'll just have to quarantine him. Then, led by our bus guide, we made our way to the orphanage. Not by bus, of course. The overworked orphans gazed vacantly at the newly built, ancient-looking homes, their eyes widened in shock as we made our way to the orphanage. Yep, I resigned myself to not think too hard about any of this. It was like a weird mock school trip. Soon enough, though, how the heck did the Phoenix Hall get here? The other girls made the comments I would have anyway. Those of us who already went with Haruka-kun to the orphanage at lunchtime had no further comments to make on the action. We had been making them all day. I was comment drained. I was dead exhausted from saying things like, "What, are you going to make it a 5-star fortress and rain fire down from its ramparts?" Yup, the orphanage was the Phoenix Hall, although this one had no moat. I guess there wasn't room for it. The first priority had to be making sure the kids were fed. They were safe and warm and cleaned up now, whether they were living in the Phoenix Hall or an Edo period fortress or the ancient Izumo shrine itself. Actually, they could live in any of those. He'd made replicas of all of them here. On my second time seeing all this architectural mayhem, it dawned on me how ridiculous it was. It had felt mostly normal back when he did it. I'm just tired from my constant commenting. Yeah, this was definitely messed up. He'd put neon on the buildings. What time period were we in? Welcome back. The kids chanted at us, every one of them smiling. We could barely recognize them, they were so clean and happy. They were still skinny, and they looked so exhausted. But still, they smiled angelically. They waved at us, grinning, shouting, and laughing. Their previous vacant expressions of hopeless, exhausted misery were gone. Hi there. Everyone was overwhelmed with joy. Except one person. One person was not smiling. As soon as the princess, Lady Chalasiers, arrived at the orphanage, she faced the children and kneeled before them. She bowed as if to strike the floor with her head, sobbing with shame. On the way over, we talked about it, how the children got into this terrible situation. We discussed it thoroughly. Haruka-kun didn't say anything. The princess couldn't say anything, she had been too grief-stricken to say a word. The children must have felt abandoned by their country, their king. But that was why she had come all this way on foot. She would offer atonement to the children abandoned by their kingdom, the discarded children of Direl. Don't cry, sis. Did you get a boo-boo? She wept and wept. There was no point in excuses or apologies. Nothing to say to undo it, nothing left to do to rescue them. All she could do was ram her forehead into the floor, wailing, as if to wound herself. This place had uncovered the truth of the kingdom she had sworn to protect. Of the people she pledged to serve. These small children had been thrown into the dirt to suffer and die. As the princess of Direl, all she could do was lower her head lower, lower, lower. It's okay, sis. Don't worry. Come inside already. These were the children she had failed to protect. It wasn't up to us to offer her false comfort. That would only disgrace a princess who had put her life on the line to protect her people. It would insult a royal family that had guarded the people of Direl for untold generations to tell her she'd done nothing wrong. All we could do was tell her the truth, that the orphans were on the verge of death, starving and sick. That if Haruka-kun hadn't had mushroom potions on him, they might have actually died. That the weakest children in Direl had been abandoned in this pit of suffering and death. Buried in the capital were the graves of untold, tiny lives. For her to not even be aware of this was a grave sin. She had pledged to protect the people, after all. And though she might wail, and suffer, and regret, and grovel, she had no choice but to rise again. Past crimes couldn't be fixed. All she could do from here was move forward and do better. If she didn't, she would lose not only the past, but the future, too. Maybe it was a good thing that the princess didn't see Haruka-kun's face. That she didn't see his silent expression as he gazed on the noble quarter as we passed by, his smile. It was a kindly smile. We'd seen that smile on his face as monsters begged for their lives in their dying moments. He smiled as he sent them on to hell. Day 66. Evening. I forgot to get a construction permit, so let's keep it a secret that these buildings are illegal. Direl capital. Behind the luxurious nobles' quarter, the slums lay in the capital's shadow. It was a den of forced labor near the business district, sucked of all its resources by the nobles' quarter beyond. A place for the poor. If the slum quarter were to slide into an even more abject state, the people of the slums would have no choice but to work in the business district operated by the merchant kingdom as slaves for life. The nobles hadn't stopped it. It was in their best interest to look the other way. Special districts were shields wielded by the nobility to create inviolable, separate zones of residence. People from one district could not enter the others. No one extended a hand to the slum quarter, and any aid was siphoned away long before it reached them. While the royal family forbid slavery in Direl, the greedy merchants found a replacement that was nearly as good: the people of the slums. He wanted into the slums. That black-haired, black-eyed boy sought a permit to enter with such favorable terms, all to disperse massive quantities of food and aid and build a souvenir shop. I had no objections to those terms. I might disagree with his objectives, but I had no way of presuming the boy's ultimate design. All I needed to do was obey. Fulfill his orders, as best as I could. I immediately retrieved a permit from the second prince and the Council of Lords, entrusting him with complete stewardship and responsibility along with a business and entrance permit. It was a dirty deal, and it required a few bribes to the nobility to make it happen, but it was not my place to question the boy's decisions. Indeed, I found myself believing that the boy could achieve what no one had before. He could bring light to the slum quarter. We exchanged no more than a few words, but no one else could so easily disregard the fetters of this city. Call it hubris, but I saw my wildest dreams in those dark, black eyes. And before I had time to think that I had hoped for too much, the commotion began. By the time the news had spread across the slum quarter, the nobles were practically rioting. It was presumptuous of me to trust them for anything. My dreams were still impossible. The hopes of aid, protection, improvements, these greedy, plundering lords would do everything in their power to seize it for themselves. The nobles are panicking. It's chaos. What is going on? No one could understand what was happening, which could only mean one culprit. There was no use in trying to comprehend his designs. His goals were on a plane beyond our understanding, and our inability to understand was merely a sign of our own limited vision. He led us through the muck to achieve the incomprehensible. It was foolish to try to understand that which could not be understood. If it could be done, I'd have already done it. Now the city was crawling with nobles demanding answers. The capital was overrun with them. Seize that building. We will not permit our capital to be defiled by repugnant worms. Drive them out. Those are our plots of land in our noble quarter. Deploy the army at once. It is an unforgivable crime to defy the will of the lords. It would be a more fitting punishment to confiscate the boy's fortune, would it not? These foolish, squawking nobles. Their crudeness boggled the mind. They did not understand what it meant for that fortress to appear out of the ether. That the capital had already fallen, a sword was pointed at our necks. He has an authorized permit, issued by the second prince and the chief of the noble council, to transfer and operate a souvenir shop within the slum quarters. Likewise, he has permission to both operate the establishment and pass through the territory. We have no cause to confiscate these permits, and certainly none to enter the slum quarter. The slum quarter may as well be a colony of Omoy by this point. As we speak, currency and food are flooding the local economy, with resources invested into architectural and city development. May I suggest an official transfer of territorial rights? It may dispose them positively to us in the coming negotiations. But with the incompetence of these nobles, could negotiations even commence? They couldn't even comprehend the position we were in. And all of those supplies of foodstuffs we received from the merchant kingdom. Are they seriously demanding that we leave